We are pleased to introduce Marcus Long. He's Chief Executive at the IIOC. The organization is a global members organization with 10 international certification bodies connected to them. The organization's role is to represent the members' view. Marcus Long is here to talk about the future demands of the market. The certification bodies are close to the market. In their view, what needs to be done within accreditation for the concept to stay relevant? Marcus Long can work from anywhere in the world, but today I think it's London.
That's right. Hi, Anna. Hello, Peter. Congratulations on the event today. You're both doing a good job. If this whole accreditation or communications thing doesn't work out for you, I understand there's an annual European singing competition. You could always switch to hosting that instead. So thank you very much for the opportunity. As you've introduced me, I'm Chief Executive of IIOC, and I'll explain a little bit more about them in a minute. I also have a number of different hats, and this photograph illustrates one of those, that at the IIF, I am the representative on the board and the executive committee representing the CB Association members. But it's today as IIOC that I'm talking to you, and as has been mentioned, IIOC is a trade association made up of 10 global certification bodies who provide a huge range of different activities around certification and at a group level across the whole of the TIC industry. And what that enables us to do is have a very clear perspective across the globe of all the different demands and needs of our customers. So what I'd like to talk about is kind of three key time periods in terms of market demands and the way that the market is going. And obviously we'll start with the short term as the first one of those three. We hear lots of cliches about the world we're living in at the moment, the new now, the new normal, etc., etc. And for us, I think there's something that's very, very clear. And that is that in this particular moment in time, what we must do is we must make sure that we are protecting the certifications and the accreditations that our community is responsible for. And that means doing it in two ways. One, that means that we must keep certificates live, but also we must make sure that the efficacy of those accredited certifications is maintained. We have to maintain the faith in what our stakeholders, our customers, our regulators understand accreditation and certification actually do for them. So it's vitally important that at this moment in time, when we're going through some very significant changes, that we fulfill both of those two things: live certifications, live accreditations, but also that those still maintain the trust in them. So what has happened to us over the last few months? Well, I think, first of all, if we look at an IIF level, we can see that IIF had actually done a very good job in preparedness. All those meetings in darkened rooms as people from across the globe met regularly to plan out what we should be doing, to plan out the documents and the processes and the procedures, I think we can solidly say that they have worked extremely well at adapting very, very rapidly to a completely different environment that we're now working. But not only did we see some solid preparedness, but also we've seen some very good responsiveness from the accreditation community working alongside the certification bodies. Whether it's statements put out by these groups, whether it's regular updates on exactly what IIF is doing, and also the development of a frequently asked questions system, which brought together all the key people, all the key stakeholders involved in IIF, accreditation bodies, certification bodies, users, to make sure that the key questions that existed as we switched how we were operating as both certification bodies and accreditation bodies still maintain those two key principles of live certifications and accreditations, plus a robust efficacy so people actually believed in what we were doing. So I think in terms of market demands, we've met the immediate short-term issues that have been thrown at us out of the pandemic through that preparedness and through that responsiveness. But we've got more to do. We've always got more to do, even in the short term. I think it's vital that we keep working very closely together, whether that's IF, accreditation bodies, certification bodies. The strength we've built is through both independence and interdependence. We need to make sure that all of those different bodies have their specific roles, that the accreditation bodies are there accrediting the certification bodies to make sure that they are doing the right things so that trust is built in what we're doing. But by working together, what we can also end up doing is making sure that we build something stronger. And one of the things that we must do is we must work hard at communicating. Because we have such a significant change at the moment, as we've switched an awful lot of our work in auditing and assessment from on-site to online, we need to make sure that all those customers and stakeholders are with us. We need to make sure that we're educating them about what we're doing. We're explaining to them what we're doing. But I think we've also got to infuse in them what we're doing as well. We have to show them that what we're doing now works, that it provides the assurances, the trust that they need in our system, and ultimately groups like consumers have faith in the certifications and the accreditations that they see. So I think there's a lot more work to be done. But if we can do that collectively, if we can work together with standardizers, certification and accreditation, we can make sure that we actually support those customers, that we make sure that each one of those different elements stand on its own and does a positive job. But when we come together, we make an even stronger job and a much better ability to support all of those people that need what we provide. So yes, there's some positives out of the current pandemic. Yes, there's more we need to do, but we also need to look ahead. And if we look in the short term, in the medium term, what we need to do is we need to make sure that we're learning the lessons out of what's happened over the last 7 or 8 months. And let's face it, regrettably, what will no doubt still be carrying on as we move ahead, not just the rest of this year, but probably into 2021 as well. So we must make sure that we review, we learn the lessons, and we implement the right things going forward as well. And I think listening is such an important part of that. It's kind of regrettably refreshing to hear the things that we've just heard from some of your Swedish colleagues about what they do. We maybe need to hear some more about that to understand what they think is right, but also what they think they'd like to see done better by us. And that does mean we have to go back to those darkened rooms as well, that maybe we do have to look at documents, look at our processes, look at our procedures, and actually review them to make sure that they are the right documents, providing exactly the right answers. We're out there selling to the world improvement, and let's make sure that we continue to do that ourselves. And we need to make sure that this responsiveness is not just about an individual component within the quality infrastructure. It's not just about certification bodies. It's not just about accreditation bodies. It's not just about the global organizations. But actually, we do that collectively as well. We need to work on our own sometimes, but actually coming together and coming up with that responsiveness in the medium term is important that we do that together. And I have no doubt that we can do better and more preparedness for the future. We don't know exactly what's around the corner. I know we'd all love a crystal ball to know exactly what's going to happen. But actually, as we've seen from how we've responded to this pandemic, a lot of that response was based on the preparedness we've done and how we're actually able to slot in our plans, our processes and our procedures and our policies to make sure that we can support customers and stakeholders, businesses, governments, consumers, to make sure we're as ready as we possibly could be to help them out. And we need to make sure we do that for the future as well. So I think that's a vital thing that we start thinking about, learning the lessons and preparing for what could be something next. If that's the medium term, then the longer term gives us even more challenges because it makes it more difficult for us to actually understand what's going to happen. But first of all, if we talk about the lessons from the pandemic, what we've clearly seen is that restrictions that have been placed on all of us have meant that we haven't been able to do the on-site auditing and assessment that we've done in the past. What, as I say, we've positively seen, though, is a very good response to doing that work online instead. And we've seen that positive response, not just from all of those within the community, but also our customers and stakeholders who have taken to what we're doing with a degree of understanding, but also a high degree of enthusiasm for making sure that they can still get the best out of what we provide with them. And I think that level of teamwork between all of us ends up producing something that provides us with great opportunities for the future. We are not going to go back to the level of on-site auditing and assessment we were at previously, but neither are we going to tip the balance so we are going completely to remote in the future. There is a balance there somewhere, a balance between on-site audit and assessment and remote audit and assessment. And I think what the last few months have shown us is that there are strengths in doing both of those. And what we now have the opportunity to do is maybe by taking those strengths of both on-site and remote, we can maybe get rid of some of the weaknesses that we had previously in just on-site. And we can end up doing a better job for all of those that need us to do that good job. So let's make sure that we take those ideas forward, that we maximize the benefits that we can gain out of a combination of on-site and remote. And that way we provide something better for everybody. But again, we've got to make sure that in that long term, we take everyone with us. We have to make sure that there is the widest possible acceptance of any new ways of doing things, of any alternatives in which we do things. We know there's still skeptics about using remote tools. We need to make sure that those people understand how it works properly and how we can iron out any problems that exist in the remote ideas so that people do get the best out of it. And then longer term, there's also the fact that technology has helped us in remote auditing, but actually digitalisation and the use of digital tools will actually give us a much greater opportunity going forward. And I'll return to that shortly. Maybe one of the positives out of this awful pandemic is actually, for the first time ever, we're starting to hear the language that we used, far more widely used, in the outside world. We hear on the news people talking about trust and confidence, about how people need assurance in what's happening in the products that they're using. And I think for the first time ever, I've been in a situation where people have actually started to really understand what our jobs are all about. And to hear people in the media, on the news, various other outlets talking about the language that we use presents us with a massive opportunity. And that opportunity is to say to people, that's what we do. People have talked today about the complexity of what we do, how it can actually sometimes seem a little bit of a mystery. And let's face it, all of us that work in this industry have a tough time explaining to everybody what our jobs actually are. But when the outside world starts talking with the language that we use, maybe at long last, we actually have some people on our side in terms of being able to communicate, because no longer are the strange words that we use, like assurance and risk management and risk mitigation, no longer are those words just a mystery, but now they genuinely start to mean things to people, as the pandemic has told people that they do need trust and confidence. They do need to be protected. They need assurance for their businesses, for the people in their country when it comes to the governments, and for the individual as well. So I think there's a massive opportunity for us going forward to actually be able to explain to people, yes, that's what we do. We do that. We help you with all of those things. So what are going to be the key drivers taking us forward? Well, as I've just mentioned, we have the idea of risk management, but we've always had the idea of risk management. But I think it becomes ever more important now. And maybe in conformity assessment, maybe in our industry, maybe actually we're seeing a shift now away from exclusive assurance, but more towards risk management. And risk management being tools being used by the accreditation community to assess certification bodies, by certification bodies to assess their customers and their clients. And I think if we can start using those ideas more, we can really start reaching out to people to say, we help you manage your risk, whatever your risk is. And as also has been explained today, we provide answers in so many different sectors, in so many different industries, in so many different ways, that we will find a tool to help people out. But in the future, we also need to be very clear about what is going to be important, what sectors are going to thrive, what sectors are important, what sectors need conformity assessment. And at the same time, we need to make sure we're doing the right things for the right kind of business models that we now have in place. We can't be stuck in a system that started 20, 25 years ago and still presents the same answers. We need to make sure that our systems are flexible enough to be able to cope with how businesses work these days. And specifically, what we do see is year on year, we see the rise of the scheme. We see more and more sector schemes being developed by particular industries, by particular organisations, to cope with the rising demands of new economies, of new products, of new services, of new desires, of new wants, of things that people actually need. And I think we need to make sure that we are a lot closer to that than we currently are. We need to make sure we understand these schemes, that we can help them out, that we can leap in there with rapid solutions to be able to help them provide the services they need to the up and coming industries. Now, part of this is obviously going to be digitalisation. Now, digitalisation presents both opportunity and threat, obviously. It will bring competition to us. It will bring competition to us we don't even know exists at the moment. There will be a whole manner of disruption out there that could affect the way that our industry goes. But I think we need to make sure we embrace digitalisation. We need to make sure that it is a tool that works for us in delivering the core principles of what we're about trust, about assurance. So we need to make sure that we embrace the ideas of digitalisation, both in terms of what we're doing with accreditation and in terms of certification as well. And that then leads into how important data and tools like AI are going to be. That the way in which we assess people, the way in which we audit people will change as we use far more data. Stefan from IKEA talked about how he uses data to assess their products. So it's vital that we are part of that we're making sure that our systems can cope with the use of data. And that extends into new tools as well. How we can use new monitoring tools where we could actually end up having 24/7 data that we can then use to help businesses get better, that we can help organizations get better. We need to make sure that any of those kind of tools work for us in the robust way that we deliver accreditation and certification. So how do we prepare ourselves for this? Well, first off, we have to have a rock solid foundation. We have to have a strong system, a strong global system that builds those solid foundations. Because the world is changing at a crazy pace at the moment. We don't know what's around the corner. If some of the key fundamentals of what we do can be built on a very solid foundation, then we can be prepared for whatever is around the corner. And that's built on strong collaboration. And that strong collaboration works at a global level. We talk about globalization and international trade. Now, that will work better if we're working better together. So we need to make sure that we continue to build the level of cooperation at a global level. And we have to be adaptable. We quite often get thrown at us that we are an industry that doesn't adapt quick enough. We certainly have to adapt quicker than we are at the moment, because the rise of new products, of new services, of new ways of doing things is changing at a bewildering pace at the moment. And we need to be able to help people out with whatever they're doing. So we have to be adaptable. We have to build a system that ensures that we have that adaptability in what we do. And one of the fundamentals to take us there is to make sure that we go forward with pride and with a justified confidence. And part of that justified confidence is the kind of things that Accredia talked about earlier today, where they talked about the data, the information that actually makes it very clear to people that this has fundamental benefits to their organizations, that we can provide people with the answers that they want, and it's going to make their organization better by using what we use. And it's very simple. We have to have ears to do that. We have to listen to what people need. Having spent many years in customer service, I used to always work on the very clear premise that the best service you offer is when you remember you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. If you listen in those kind of ratios, if you listen and talk in those ratios, you will be doing the right thing. We can make sure that we are taking the customer issues on board. We can make sure that we provide the solutions that boardrooms want, that governments want, not the solutions that we necessarily just want to dictate to people, but the methods that we use, the solutions that we have, can be used to provide the answers that people need to their ever-changing needs. And by continuing to listen, by thinking about the future and understanding what customers need, we will make sure that we can do things better in the future. There you go. That's me. Thank you very much.